Imagine waking up one morning.
Strangers are standing at your door. Not just strangers, but thousands of them. Armed, hungry, determined. And within just a few generations, your language, your religion, your entire world is gone. This is not a horror story. This is history. The colonization of the Americas is one of the most dramatic, brutal, and world-changing events in all of human history. Millions of lives were lost. Entire civilizations were erased. And the consequences of what happened 500 years ago are still shaping our world today. So buckle up, because today we are diving into the entire history of how the Americas were colonized. Before we talk about colonization, let's understand what we're dealing with. The Americas, North America, Central America, and South America cover over 42 million square kilometers. That's nearly 30% of the Earth's total land surface. And long before any European ever set foot here, this land was home. Home to over 60 to 100 million indigenous people, spread across hundreds of tribes, kingdoms, and empires. In the north, the Iroquois, the Cherokee, the Sioux. In the center, the mighty Aztec Empire, ruling over millions. In the south, the Inca Empire, stretching over 4,000 kilometers along the Andes Mountains. These were not primitive people living in the jungle. These were advanced civilizations, with complex governments, massive cities, sophisticated agriculture, and rich cultures. So how did it all change? Let's go back to the beginning.
Part 1. The First Contact. Columbus and 1492. It all starts with a man named Christopher Columbus. Columbus was an Italian explorer sailing under the Spanish flag. He believed, incorrectly, that he could reach Asia by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean. On October 12, 1492, he landed on an island in the Caribbean. He thought he had reached the Indies. He was wrong. But this mistake would change the world forever. Columbus met the Taino people, a peaceful indigenous population. He described them as friendly and generous. And then, he enslaved them. Columbus returned to Spain with gold, spices, and captured natives. The message was clear. There was wealth across the ocean. And Europe came running. Part 2. The Spanish Conquest. Spain moved fast. Within just a few decades, Spanish conquistadors, meaning conquerors, were tearing through the Americas. In 1519, a man named Hernán Cortés landed in Mexico with just 500 soldiers. His target? The mighty Aztec Empire. The Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, was one of the largest cities in the world at that time, bigger than most European capitals. But Cortés was clever. He formed alliances with tribes who hated the Aztecs. He used gunpowder, horses, and steel weapons, things the Aztecs had never seen. And then came the real weapon: smallpox. A disease the Europeans carried unknowingly wiped out millions of indigenous people who had zero immunity. By 1521, the Aztec Empire had fallen. Then came Francisco Pizarro in 1532, who targeted the Inca Empire in South America. Using similar tactics, betrayal, superior weapons, and disease, the Inca Empire collapsed within years. The Spanish Empire now controlled massive territories across Central and South America, regions they called New Spain. They extracted gold, silver, and resources on an industrial scale, sending unimaginable wealth back to Europe. Part 3. Other European powers join the race. Spain wasn't alone for long. Portugal had already claimed Brazil in 1500 after explorer Pedro Alvarez Cabral landed there. Then came the British. In 1607, the first permanent English settlement was established at Jamestown, Virginia. It was a disaster at first. Colonists starved, fought with natives, and barely survived. But they stayed, and they grew. The British slowly colonized the eastern coast of North America, establishing 13 colonies that would one day become the United States of America. France also entered the game, claiming Canada and the Mississippi River Valley, calling their territory New France. The Netherlands briefly controlled parts of what is now New York, originally called New Amsterdam. Every major European power wanted a piece of the Americas. Part 4. The Dark Side: Slavery and Genocide. Now, we cannot talk about colonization without talking about its darkest chapter. The colonizers needed labor, massive labor, to work mines, plantations, and farms. First, they enslaved indigenous people, but disease had already killed millions of them. So they turned to Africa. The transatlantic slave trade began, one of history's greatest crimes against humanity. Over 12 million Africans were forcibly taken from their homes, chained on ships, and transported across the ocean in conditions so horrific that millions died during the journey. Those who survived were sold as property and forced to work for the rest of their lives. Meanwhile, indigenous populations continued to decline. Through disease, warfare, forced labor, and deliberate campaigns of destruction, it is estimated that 90% of the indigenous population of the Americas died. Meanwhile, indigenous populations continued to decline. Through disease, warfare, forced labor, and deliberate campaigns of destruction, it is estimated that 90% of the indigenous population of the Americas died within 150 years of European contact. 90%. Entire languages, entire histories, gone.